Welcome to Unscripted Authentic Leadership. Once again, we are your hosts, Lafayette Lane, and my co-host. I'm joined by my co-host, John LeBron. Week 2 of our podcast. We are excited to get into some topics today on different forms of leadership and another aspect of leadership. But before we get into the topic, we want to say thank you for all those that are supporting our podcast and have tuned in, whether that's via YouTube, Apple Podcast, or Spotify. We thank you for your continued support. How you doing, man? How's your week been, bro?
Man, my week's been great. And yes, ditto what you just said. Everybody who sends feedback, love it. Thanks so much for love the appreciation and the feedback. So really appreciate it.
Absolutely. I've seen some reviews. I've seen some ratings on Apple Podcasts as well as Spotify, and some reviews on Facebook and YouTube. And so it feels great when you're walking in purpose and you get that kind of, not confirmation, but the affirmation. So it feels good. And so last week, just to recap those that may just be tuning in for the first time, we talked about compromising leadership last week and the premise of leadership from the aspect of compromise from a positive perspective, and then also how compromise in leadership could be a negative perspective. And this week, my bro John, he wanted to approach this subject on mentorship and leadership. And I thought that what a befitting topic for the early stages on our Authentic Leadership podcast, talking about the role that before you could become that leader, being a mentor and being in that role of the second man before you become the first man, if I can put it that way. And so I'll just start off by kind of giving my definition of what a mentor is to me. When I thought of mentor and this word mentorship, I said mentorship, or having a mentor, is someone who provides a blueprint or a template that one can follow in order to be successful, or a trailblazer. And when I thought about mentorship in my life, I thought about Father. He is my hero, and I look up to him to this day. He is my Superman, and I look to him for a lot of the things that I can see in my life. It's because there was a pattern, there was a template that was set for me, set that example of hard work, of being a leader, being a man, that was set before me. And so my father, just to give a little background, I can never recall a day that my dad called off work. And so that aspect of hard work and fortitude, whether he was sick, whether he was tired, he knew he had a family to feed, and sometimes not just working one job, but multiple jobs. And I never heard my father complain. I never saw him call off work. I never saw him call off work because he was sick or because he had a headache. And so he set that foundation of hard work and what hard work ethic looks like for me. So now at 26 years old, I don't have to exactly duplicate his model, but I have a good foundation that I can say, you know what, there was someone that set a path for me that now I can lead other people, because I was able to have a leader in my life that I was able to copy from and to pull from to help me navigate through the winds and the whirlwinds of life. That makes it a lot easier than trying to figure it out on your own when you have someone that's already setting that blueprint and that template. When you think of mentor or mentorship, what do you think of, John?
Yeah, so for me, I like to break things down in sort of the simplest form. Yeah. And so when I think of just a mentor, it's just like an advisor, basically, right? Someone who's trusted, ideally experienced. But there's a lot of facets to that, right? I mean, I'm not saying your financial advisor or something like that is a mentor, but at the same time, mentors can come in different forms. So if you're a mentor, some people, how do I explain this? So I find that sometimes when I'm seeking mentorship, sometimes I'm looking for mentorship in a specific area, or
Yes.
sometimes I'm looking for sometimes we get, we find mentorship on a personal level, one-to-one, like a father or a coach,
Yeah.
or maybe a business mentor who's willing to take us under their wing and coach us on things for a long term. But then on the flip side, sometimes we can find a mentor from somebody at a distance. Maybe it's a pastor who's a really good example and role model. You may not have a one-on-one relationship with them, but you respect how they walk, right? And so you model yourself after that. So there's a lot of different facets to that. And obviously the closer you get to a mentor, the better. I've had experience with all. So people very integrated in my life, and then people who I sort of, watch from YouTube, you know what I mean? Type of distance. Like, I really appreciate what they've learned and what they do. And so I'll listen to what they say, but at the same time, you have to take it at that same level of it's a YouTube person versus somebody actually integrating your life. But yeah. Anyway, to me, it's a big deal. Mentorship is huge. Everybody should seek it out. Everybody needs mentorship in their life.
Absolutely. I like how you said that you broke down the levels of mentorship for the particular context you are in your life. And so you don't just have to have one mentor, but you can have a mentor for each level in each area of life. Like you said, for the finances, you can have a financial mentor. For the leadership, you can have a leadership mentor. For those in a family context, it could be someone that's your father, or someone that you're going to look to, maybe an uncle or grandfather that plays those different roles of mentorship. And so we have that groundwork foundation set of what a mentor or what mentorship is. But why is it important? Or is it important? Why is mentorship, or why is it important, or is it important?
I read in a book once that anybody who wants to lead a successful life,
Yeah.
and that may be financially, spiritually, just as good. Everybody has their own definition. It's not for me to determine for you. But wisdom is typically a factor in your success, right?
Mm.
And there's really two ways to get wisdom, and that's either from mistakes or from mentorship, right? And so I view a mentor as somebody who has gone before me. Before I take advice from somebody, I thoroughly kind of look at the fruit on the tree, right? I was always taught to be a good checker of fruit. Like, how does the fruit on their tree appear? and so think of it as, I look at a mentor as like, if I'm crossing a minefield and it's somebody who's been through the field before me, I would like to take their footsteps, right?
Yeah.
They've successfully navigated that minefield. Therefore, I know by following their footsteps, I can be successful as well by duplicating their steps.
Absolutely. I love how you said that, man, because that's something that I wrote down, is that in mentorship, that everyone needs a mentor, if for no other reason than to avoid unnecessary mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
That is not to be naive to the fact that as human beings, we will make mistakes, that as you go and you learn, that there'll be a learning curve, there'll be adjustments, there'll be some things that you'll have to learn along the way. But if I have a mentor that's already been through some of the things that I'm on my way to, and has already been through that level, they can provide me, like you said, that blueprint, where they can tell me where the traps are, where I don't have to go through those same things. And I may be able to obtain my goal much quicker, much faster, and more efficient that way than having to go through the same mistakes, because I learned how to submit myself and to listen to a mentor. And so I agree with you that mentor is absolutely important. I would suggest that if you are going to be successful, now success is a relative term. Success to me is not just money. It's not just dollar amount. People that make $20,000 a year, in their mind, they can be successful because of whatever context success means to them. But whatever success means to you, in order to be successful, I believe that one has to have a mentor because they have a blueprint to follow. I mean, anywhere in life, you have to have directions, right? You can't go to the store. You got to know where you're going. Turn left here. The store's 2 or 3 miles down the road. And so you have that GPS, you have that map. And that's what the mentor provides us. And so mentorship is important. And one of the reasons I think mentorship is important as well is because mentors provide information and knowledge. And you talked about that wisdom piece. There's a quote by Benjamin Franklin that I found that Benjamin Franklin said, "Tell me and I forget. Teach me and I may remember. But involve me and I learn." And so that's what a mentor does. A mentor can provide for you information. They can tell you so you can apply it to memory, but they can involve you and you can learn that way. What do you think about that part of mentorship? That not only can they provide you the information and the knowledge, but they can give it to you in such a way that you don't just have information, but you have application that will ultimately bring about revelation to your life.
Yeah, I have a book. I don't remember what it's called, but it's basically talks about how to. Talks about the whole saying you've heard: teach or give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day. Teach a man to fish, he'll provide for a lifetime. Right? Yeah. Same aspect. Yeah, the more hands-on I can bring somebody into my life when I'm coaching them and walk them through a process, the more they'll learn. But one step further, if I can eventually teach them to teach the same thing to somebody else, then now I've gone from at one point being a protege myself and always still being that to being a mentor to somebody who is a protege, to now allowing them to step into that role of mentorship, right? And now you're talking about creating almost like a legacy based on what you've learned and then taught. And I fully believe that can come full circle to benefit your life. So,
absolutely. And so dealing with what you just said about the transfer of the legacy, I don't want to get ahead too far.
Yeah, I know.
But before we can get to that transfer, we need mentors, because mentors can see where we need improvement, where we often cannot see. Because let's be honest, especially being young and being ambitious, being dreamers, being millennials and being thinkers, being creators, we often think that we have the best ideas, and we may have the best ideas, and we think that we have all of it figured out. But oftentimes our ambition blinds us to the wisdom piece that we need to go alongside the creativity. The Bible says that he calls the young because they're strong, but he calls the old because they know the way. And so I can have all the strength and I have all the ideas that in the world that the world may need. But if I don't have the wisdom to marry that to go along with my creativity, I'll harm myself and I will not get to the intended goal that's already in my mind and in my heart that I wanted to set out to do, because I don't have the wisdom to navigate and I don't have the wisdom to see where I need improvement. Mentors can often see where we need improvement because they're looking from a different perspective. Mentors aren't looking to pat you on the back and tell you how great you are. They're not here to be our fans. Your mentor is not here to tell you how great you are, how wonderful you are. They're here to tell you where you need improvement. So speak to that piece of how mentors can often see where we need improvement in areas where we cannot.
Yeah, so an effective mentor is often not your best friend, okay?
Yeah.
I'm not saying, so as I've become, as I've had mentors for a prolonged period of time, they're often become friends. I consider them a friend. Right. But the relationship didn't start at friend. We were, most friendships begin out of a common interest or something. Right.
Sure.
Think about like second grade. It's like, hey, you like Batman? I like Batman. Let's hang out, right? That kind of thing, right? Or your homeroom and your last names both had the first same two letters, so now you sat with each other for 2 years straight, or all through high school. That kind of thing. Like these commonalities start friendships. But a mentor, so a friendship loves you just the way you are, right? A friend does. A mentor loves you too much to leave you there. Okay?
Ooh.
Yes.
A mentor loves you too much to leave you where you are, to
Correct.
keep you in that place of mediocrity because they see more than you. Go ahead, bro.
Yes.
Wow.
So remember that. So when seeking mentor, being a protege is not for the thin skin. Let's put it that way.
My God.
To be effectively mentored, right? Mentored. We're talking about being mentored, not even being a mentor. That'll come next.
Yeah.
So being, understand that when you get into that mentee-mentor relationship, the goal is for you to grow as an individual. Yeah. Therefore, if they're going to be an effective mentor, they need to give you feedback on the areas that they think would be best for you to grow, right?
Yeah.
And they can see things that you cannot. So, for example, I'm in the hardware store, and an individual is sweeping a pile of just dust into a group, and they have a dustpan sitting about 6 feet away. So once the dustpan was already sitting there, I just kind of saw this as I was walking up. They put all this dust into a big pile, all kinds of trash and stuff. And they see the dustpan, they start taking with the broom the dust from the dust pile and slowly moving it all the way to the pan. Then they would come back and they're getting ready to start it again. And I said, "Excuse me, I don't want to tell you how to do your job, but if you're up for a little advice, what might be easier is if you just took that pan and moved it directly to the dust." And they kind of looked at me and thought, that would be way easier. Now, I didn't want to brag and tell them that I worked at, a hardware store myself during college. No, not really. But I mean, I did, but that's not the advice. That's not where I got it from. Just the difference is often when you're in the process, you can be very focused and in sort of a tunnel vision. Yeah. And a mentor sees things from a different perspective, right? They've taken a step back and they see what you're doing, because you're focused in the process. It's kind of like a coach in sports. That's why they have video, right? When if you play basketball or football, you have these things from afar. It's like, hey, look, when you caught that ball here, you turned left. If you know the players there, you should have turned in, not out. And they show that to you as a coach, so that the next time you can change the habit that you had formed previously to make you better. So, anyways, that's my perspective on mentorship. I love it.
Yeah, man. And there's so many things running through my mind, that your mentor often is not your best friend. That's what you started off saying.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, and I'm not one of those people that are here to bash millennials, because I'm a millennial, and I think, as a millennial representative of this generation, I love our generation. Mm-hmm. I think that we are special. We are one of a kind.
Yep.
But at the same time, I can be honest enough to be objective to say that one of the things that hinders our generation is that we are too sensitive. We're absolutely too sensitive. And we think that because someone has a different opinion, or they may disagree or see things differently than we do, then they are trying to kill our dreams, and they are trying to cast us out to say, oh, they don't know what they're talking about. When the reality is that you need someone that has that different opinion so they can sharpen you. Mentors are often the disciplinarians that create those necessary boundaries that we cannot set for ourselves. We don't know how to set boundaries. Boundaries aren't here to kill you. They're here to keep you safe. If there was no speed limits on the road, we all would be dead. If there was no stoplights, those boundaries, those things that keep you insulated, so that can keep you in the right perspective, in the right place, that'll keep you on track to your ultimate destiny. And so I also put in here, bro, about mentorship, that mentors are sounding boards that we can bounce ideas off of for their unfiltered opinion. And you didn't know I wrote that down. You kind of already hit on that. But I'll have to go back to my father. It's amazing, and I'm sure that you can attest to this, that as you grow, that the role of your parent kind of changes. And so the relationship that me and my father have now is not so much of I'm his little child, but it's more of the mentee and the mentor relationship, that now I can go to my dad as a trusted advisor and I can bounce ideas off of him. And he never tells me what to do, but he will say, you know what, you may want to give that a second thought. Why don't you think about that a little longer, son? Why don't you research that a little bit more? That may not be the right thing to say, but I go to him because, number one, I trust him, and number two, I know that he's been where I'm trying to go. And so what do you think about mentors being those sounding boards, because that relationship has been built up and that trust has been built up enough to where you feel comfortable enough to go to that mentor, and you know that the advice that they give back to you, that you can receive it not through a filter, the filter of love, but not through a perspective of they have to feel like they have to guard what they say because you're sensitive, but from the perspective of they know that you're in a place of receptiveness, that you can receive what they have to say to you. Speak to that a little bit.
Okay, so let me start with this then. Your ability to receive is not dependent on the quality of the seed, but the quality of the soil.
Ooh, okay, hands up.
Okay.
What in the world is going on?
Let me say that again.
Oh.
Your ability to receive is not dependent on the quality of the seed, but on the quality of the soil. Okay? That means, if I break that down, the advice they give you, like so many people value and say, oh, the advice that, if I recommend somebody read a book, they may be like, I didn't get much out of it. It doesn't mean the book was bad, right? I got a ton out of this book, which is why I recommended it. Yeah. It just means their soil was not ready to receive the nuggets that were sitting in that book, right? It's so key. Same thing with a relationship with your mentor, right? Yeah. Now, there's a lot that goes into how to choose a mentor and stuff, but the foundation of a lot of mentors is parents. Right? My parents are definitely mentors of mine. I have other mentors, and if I take the example of a non-parental mentor, you had said taking the advice unfiltered, and them feeling as if they can give you advice essentially without you feeling offended. I don't remember exactly what words you used. And I think that takes time to build that trust. It takes time. There's people I've mentored, and some people I mentor and I can talk to them like a brother, right? Right. And there's some people that I start off a little more delicately, but I always give the truth, right? I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to pat them on the butt to make them feel better. I will always give the truth. Absolutely. But it doesn't mean I give them the whole apple at one time and say, here's all the things that you do wrong, right? But a mentor, I have a relationship with a mentor. My wife and I was a husband and wife. Their names were Terry and Lori, and Terry had passed away a few years ago, and Lori continues to mentor my wife and I. And when we first started that relationship, this is a non-parent, right? Just people we were highly respected in business, and they just essentially took us under, they decided, hey, we'll give you advice as much or as little as you want, is basically how it came out to be, right? Yeah. And the closer our relationship got, it started off sort of distant, like, hey, how would you do this? Or some little things, right? Maybe a little financial advice or something like that. But as you've progressed through that relationship, eventually it's, and it gets into things that are even more important, like how would you parent advice on parenting your kids, things like that. So I guess my answer to that is, how do you not filter it? It comes with time and trust. and just be willing to go through those steps. But at the same time, the protege has to be willing, or has to have a good enough self-image to be able to take in that advice without worrying about it hurting their feelings.
Absolutely. Wow, powerful. Just the first thing that you said, man, that just really stuck out to me is the soil.
Yes.
Soil. It's not the seed, it's the soil. And that's where we are, bro, in the 21st century in 2020. We are so quick to blame the other person of why we're not successful, or why we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing. It's because it's such and so's fault. So you're going to blame the seed when you can look introspectively. It's my soil, that I'm just not in the place to receive the information or the download that you're trying to give me. And so you talked about that trust piece in mentorship and how that takes time. And I want to talk to that because we know that trust is the foundation of every relationship in life. Without trust, there can be no true relationship, or there would be a toxic relationship. There can be a relationship, but it won't be a healthy relationship. Let me put it that way. But trust is the foundation of any healthy relationship. And so once we establish the healthiness of the trust between the mentee and the mentor, then we can go to the place to where that mentor can be a connector for the mentee. And by connector, I mean that the relationships, the access, and the resources that the mentor has, it's not that they are freely giving to the mentee, but because we have such a connected relationship and we have been knit together to model life, and you are in this place of carrying on my legacy, I can be a connector or a bridge for you to get you from your point A to your next destination. Talk a little bit about the mentor being the connector.
Oh man, I feel like that's deep. Yeah, like you said, it comes down to a trust. I always say there's three levels of relationship: like, trust, and then respect. It starts with the like and the trust, right?
Yeah.
Those can be built pretty quickly. Respect takes time, but as you get into that, building that respect, not being respectful, but having a respect for, right? We should all be respectful. We teach our kids to be respectful, that whole thing.
Not being respectful, but having a respect for.
Yes.
I never heard it like that.
Well, I just look at it as in, there's people I have a high respect for, like yourself and stuff like that. And to me, that's sort of to have a high respect for somebody means you spent time with them, you've talked about things that matter, and you've seen how they live life, right? And so you develop a respect for that person. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything they say or do or whatever, but it definitely means that it's just somebody who's on that top level of your association or how you view somebody. But to be respectful just is what you teach your kids, right? You go in the store and don't stick your tongue at anybody, unless it's me doing it to my kids.
Right.
But that's that whole thing. But so being the connector of somebody from, I think you were saying, from point A to point B, really comes down to, in my opinion, the protege. So if I can break this down real quick, there's 4 types, in my opinion, of proteges, right? You have a passive protege, a parasite protege, the prodigal protege, and the productive protege. And I'm going to break these down quick just for time. Yes. So a passive protege I find most common. I never did data on this. This is just my opinion. What I've seen as I've mentored people, because when you start in that relationship and you start mentoring people and putting your hand out to help them, you'll find a lot of them come and go. But some will stick with you because they appreciate and respect that relationship. They see the value in that relationship. So the passive protege typically is around when it's convenient. It's somebody who just needs to pops in for some advice because maybe things aren't going quite the way they want, right? It's like a friend who, when their relationship's bad, they're like calling you for advice, but then as soon as they have a good month, you don't hear from them again until they're fighting with their wife 2 months later. And you're like, look, this could be avoided if we could just talk through this, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
On a consistent basis. But same thing. Had those experiences with, relationship type of issues all the way to business things and so forth. That's a passive protege. They come and go as is convenient, right?
Right.
A parasite protege is typically somebody who's really just interested in your credibility, right? It's like somebody who wants to say, I get mentored by, I don't know, let's say it's John Maxwell, right? Yes, love him. And I'm not saying you can't receive information and mentorship from his content. You obviously can, but you're probably not in a direct mentorship relationship with him, right? If you don't have a cell phone number, you're probably not getting mentored by him. Let's put it that way. And so a lot of people will pull credibility from a mentorship figure, because you can't see me, I'm putting my quotes up on the camera, because they sort of just want to eat at that credibility so they can gain access or impress somebody else, right? So it's really not for any pure there's no pure motives behind it. They just want to, it's like I said, like a parasite. Then you have the prodigal protege, who pretty much just, they're in your back pocket until they're exposed. So as soon as they found out, or you realize, hey, these are some major things that you really need to address, they take off. That happens sometimes too. I would say the most common one is a passive protege. The second with me is sort of the prodigal protege. As soon as you're like, hey, this is a big issue, and you might want to look into it, and then they're gone. Hopefully they come back. You know what I mean? I always leave the door open. Then you have the productive protege, and these are people who really integrate their mentors into their life, right? They seek counsel before major decisions, things like that, because they honestly want to know the feedback of, or the potential repercussions of that big choice. Like, should I buy a house right now? So I was listening to a multi-millionaire who's, everybody knows, he's all over YouTube and stuff. And I was just listening to him, and he was buying a plane. And he talked about the process. He didn't say he was seeking mentorship, but one of the things he said was, I was looking to buy this giant plane. So I reached out to, a half a dozen of my billionaire friends and said, would this be a good idea, or am I just having a big ego? And this guy's kind of an ego guy, honestly. Yeah. And that could, though, be for show. But at the same time, I was like, that's really interesting to me. That one thing I picked up was he really wanted their feedback before buying this jet, right? Yeah. Because they've all done it, and he's like, is this actually a good idea? Now that's an extreme example, but this is somebody who may think he's better than mentorship, if that makes sense. So you want to be a productive protege. Integrate your mentor into your life, and then allow them. They can only really mentor you correctly if you're giving them all the information, and you really want the best feedback, because sometimes people will come to you with a question like, should I buy this house? But they forget to tell you how much debt they're in, right? Things like that, right? Or should I buy this house? By the way, we're also looking at a divorce attorney, right? Things of those things. It's just they give you the relevant information needed to get the answer they're hoping for.
Wow. And so you said the 4 P's. Now you said parasite, you said productive, you said prodigal. What was the fourth one?
The first one was called a passive protege. It's the guy that comes and goes. Yeah. It's the most common. Yeah, they just pop in when things aren't going so well.
Yeah. Then the parasite, and then the prodigal. You said the prodigal is the one that just leaves without a notice.
No, the passive comes and goes, right?
And goes.
The prodigal is the one who exits when they've been sort of when you found the true them, right? Or you found a major character flaw. And most mentors, a good mentor isn't gonna just kick you out of their, hug, I guess you could say, just because they found something really bad about you. They're just wanting to say, hey, you need to fix this. Otherwise, your life's going to crumble. It's going to crumble whether they help you or not, right? They're just trying to be a mentor and actually help you with the situation. You have to face it, though.
Right. And so we want to be productive.
Yes.
That was amazing. And so we talked about what is mentorship, why is it important, who needs a mentor. But now that we've covered those, how does someone find a mentor? From my perspective, and I've got a little bit of notes on this one, I'll just give my first bullet point and you just give yours. How does someone find a mentor? When I looked at that question, I thought about sometimes you don't have to look. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't have to find a mentor. You just have to be in the right position. Mm-hmm. And so some things are not taught. Some things are caught because I'm in the right position. I was not looking to be mentored by this person, but I happened to be at this particular conference. I happened to work at this particular company. I happened to be at church on this particular day. And there was a download. There was some information that was released that I was able to receive, not because I was necessarily looking for it, but I always keep myself in the right posture and I keep myself in the right position to keep my heart and my mind open to receive. And so some of the biggest blessings and some of the greatest downloads of information that we could ever receive is not because we went looking for it. It was because we were in the right position internally. And because our heart was right and our mind was open to receive, our soil was right. Mm-hmm. We were able to receive the seed when we weren't even looking for it. And so how does someone find a mentor to you, bro?
I'm 100% agree with you. It's I think, I've had a lot of people say a mentor's never showed up in my life. But I think what's actually happened is you may not have had somebody just say, hi, can I be your mentor? Right? Like, let me be, will you be my neighbor sort of thing. Right? Just, my neighbor. Yeah, the old show, Mr. Rogers or whatever it is. But yeah, most good people are really happy to give advice. Right. They've been pouring into themselves and their cup is overflowing with information. They're ready to give out, right? So when you see somebody and you just start that relationship. If you're at like Lafayette said, if you're at a conference, if you're at church and you take let's say your church has I had a church that has this event called a summit. And there's leaders all over. Some are speakers. Some are just, leaders within the church hosting the event. And you feel led to go and just start a relationship. It literally is just starting just saying hi. And then if it's meant to be, that conversation will click. And then you just have to be willing to reach a hand out. And you don't even have to ask for mentorship. You just start the relationship. Most mentorship things don't start off with, I'd like to be your mentor. It's just a relationship that's carried on. Yeah. And then you treat them as a mentor and you sort of sit at their feet while they, you treat each crumb like a feast, right? So many times people give out just...
I'll try not to holler on this podcast.
So many times people give out just so much information and people just dismiss it. And man, every crumb is just helping you get to that next step.
Crumb like a feast.
Yes, every little nugget, man. And so, for example, I was at an event just yesterday, and somebody who I have a high respect for was outside grilling food. And everybody at this leadership event was standing inside, just kind of talking, shooting the breeze. Yeah. All great people. I really like all of them. that I know. And I see him standing out by the grill. He was serving, man. He's the ultimate server. His name is
Yeah.
Brett, and he's just out there just cooking up meats and stuff. And I just kind of snuck out the door. And I said, "Hey, you gonna be out here for a while?" He's like, "Yeah, for a little bit longer, yeah." So I sat down, man, and we just had a conversation. I had some questions that kind of came to mind, so I just bounced them off, you know. He never said, "John, I'd like to be your mentor," but I have so much respect for him and how he lives his life. He's really only a few years older than me, that I just really want his opinion. Those are how you find mentors.
Absolutely. And I love how you just said that last piece, that you went out and you saw the person that had the information. You didn't wait for him to come to you. You went to him. And so we have to ask ourselves, as those who want to be successful and those who may be in the position where we feel like we don't have any mentors, I have a question that you have to ask yourself: how bad do you want it? Are you willing to leave your place of uncomfortability, that you may be saying to yourself, well, I'm an introvert. I don't like to go outside of my comfort zone and go to search out information, or go and search out for people. Well, I would suggest to you that if you're not willing to leave your comfortable places, you'll look 5-10 years down the road and you'll be in the same exact place you are now 10 years later. And so you have to ask yourself, how bad do you want it? You said something that was so great. You have to treat each crumb like a feast. That if this is a person that I'm seeking after, I have to realize that they may not be able to give me an hour of their time. They may not be able to talk on the phone all night with me and text me back and forth. But if they give me 5 minutes of a conversation and information, I'm going to take those 5 minutes and I'm going to take each word. I'm going to dwell on each word. I'm going to study. I'm going to meditate on everything that person has said to me. And I'm going to treat that each crumb like a feast. And so even from a 5-minute conversation, from that 5-minute conversation could change the trajectory of your life, because you realize the value of that information that you're getting from the person that's already in a position where you want to see yourself going. And so we talked about what mentorship is, why it's important, who needs a mentorship, and how does someone find a mentor. I would suggest also that if you want to find a mentor, you have to surround yourself with people that are going in the same direction that you are.
That's golden.
I heard Steve Harvey say this, that if you look at your 5 closest friends around you right now, at this very minute, we can tell where you'll be in the next 5 to 10 years. Doctors surround themselves with doctors. Musicians surround themselves with musicians. CEOs surround themselves with CEOs. Successful people surround themselves with successful people. And so if you want to be successful, and if you're saying, well, I don't have anyone around me that can give me the wisdom or the information to take me to the next level, it's not their responsibility. Who surrounds you is your choice. And so I would advise, and I would admonish you, I would challenge you to check your surroundings today and make some adjustments, make some fine tunings, that if you want to be a business owner and everyone around you has bad credit, it might be time to change your surroundings. If you want to be a pastor or a leader in the context of church and lead people, and no one around you goes to church, you might want to change your surroundings. And so that's how you find a mentor. And I kind of just want to wrap this up. We touched on the protege part, but I want to just wrap this whole thing up, just talking to the proteges, talking to those that are in a place that, you know, either I'm in a place where I'm looking for mentorship, I'm open to it, I hear what you guys have said, I'm going to take this advice, and talking to those proteges that already have a mentor, but they want to continue to master the mentee role and the protege role, because they have the responsibility of carrying on the legacy. When I think of the protege piece, just to wrap this up, and I kind of touched on it earlier, is that modeling the model, but not to the extent of duplication, because I believe that God has created us all. And even though God has given you a mentor or mentors in your life, they are a model, but you don't have to duplicate them. That you can still have your own personality. You can still be yourself, but you can take bits and pieces of them, not all of it, and mix it with yourself and be your own person. And so what I call that is assimilation, not in the context of cultural assimilation of trying to be like another culture, but assimilation in the fact of taking in and fully understanding information, ideas from this mentor, that I can take some pieces from them, a piece from this mentor and this mentor, mix it with my personality, and now I can be that protege that can carry on the legacy. Well, just wrap that up for me about the protege piece, bro. And you've eloquently already spoken on the protege a little bit before, but just wrap that up on carrying that out and being yourself, modeling without losing yourself.
Okay, so if I can add just any tiny thing to what you just said, which was incredible, by the way. If you're listening to this, replay back that last 5 minutes and just, I'm going to soundbite it. It's perfect. Just remember, I never loved the word change. A lot of people say, oh, you have to change. You have to change. You don't need to change. You need to improve. Okay? Big difference. Whoa. When you say, hey, and I understand when someone says, you just need to change, or we're working on changing, stuff like that. I'm not saying there's not things you can't change about you, but when most people hear change, it almost signifies that you're not, who you are is not good. Like the person you are, your personality, the way you do things is not good enough. Yeah. It's not that you need to be somebody else. You just need to always be in the process of improvement. So continually improve yourself and continually take good things that you read, listen to, and things that you grab from association and mentorship, and use those to improve yourself. Yeah. You don't need to change your personality. You don't need to change how you look, stuff like that, unless it's just to make yourself feel improved. Self-improvement.
Improvement.
Yeah, those types of things. So that's all I can add to that. Don't worry about changing. Just worry about improving. And you are good enough. God doesn't create junk, right? He created you in his image. Therefore, you don't need to be somebody else. Okay? Yes. And so, yeah, that's all I can say about that. So,
wow, I love that, man. And I want to speak to the audience that what John just said, I pray that you heard. He said, God doesn't make junk. You are good enough. You don't have to change your identity. You can improve. You can evolve. The Bible says that we are all fearfully and wonderfully made in the image of God. He's already put everything down on the inside of you that you need to be successful. You just have to find out who you are and what you are so you can bring glory to God. Man, this has been an awesome discussion, an awesome conversation about mentorship. What is mentorship? Why it's important? Who needs a mentor? Finding a mentor, how to be a protege. I mean, we covered so much groundwork in this podcast, and I feel like we could take the mentorship topic even to another level of part 2, but we'll save that for next week for another time. And speaking on improvement, we want to close our podcast by adding a new segment of improvement. And one way you can improve yourself is by reading. Leaders are readers. Anybody that knows me and knows John, we are avid readers because you don't know it all. And so you should constantly be filling yourself with information all the time, reading not just what's going on in the news of negativity, but filling your mind with information that you'll have revelation so you can succeed and you'll see a manifestation of your purpose and your destiny. And so our first read of the week is the book called The Pursuit. And John, just talk about this book and why this is a good book for those that are leaders and those that are mentees that are on the road to being mentors and proteges. Why should they read The Pursuit?
Yeah, so this was one of the early books that I read in my self-improvement journey, just as a recommendation. Yeah. The leaders on there are both great leaders in the business world. Actually, the main author, Dexter Yeager, actually passed away a few years ago, But when we got to this topic, there was a specific chapter, right? Chapter or page 85, chapter 11. It's called Mentors and Proteges, right? And I knew it was in there. It's something I've based and I reference back frequently to make sure I'm on the right page. The 4 types of proteges was directly out of this book. I didn't make this up. This is from them. That's how I knew, okay, how am I, what kind of learning, what kind of protege am I, right? And I was able to bounce off that stuff off of there. That is the best chapter in the book, in my opinion. That's why I pulled that out.
Absolutely. And so those of you that want to dig into further those 4 types of proteges and mentees, get that book, The Pursuit. Secondly, I want to suggest for my read of the week is Leaders Eat Last by Simon Sinek. And this book talks about the importance of, even though you are a leader, servitude should be at the forefront of your mind. That leaders are the ones who run headfirst into the unknown. Leaders are the ones who take risks, and they have empathy for the organization. They have sympathy and they have empathy for the people that work for them and that they work with, not against. And so The Pursuit and Leaders Eat Last. And we also want you all that are following us, we know that you can follow us on our Facebook page. Of course, you can follow John LeBron and Lafayette Lane on Facebook under our names. You will find great content on leadership, on family, on experience, on growth, on creativity on both of our pages. It will inspire you. You can also follow our Unscripted Authentic Leadership page on Instagram at Unscripted Leadership. That's at Unscripted Leadership, just as it is spelled on Instagram. Follow John's Instagram, personal Instagram account at LeBron613. And then follow me as well at Lafayette B. Lane. And so you can find us there. And you can also find us on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify Podcasts. This has been another successful week of Unscripted Authentic Leadership. We pray you all have a blessed week. We thank you for your support, and we'll see you on next Sunday. Until next time, have a blessed week and be the leader that God has created you to be.